How you doing, my fellow GMs and would-be world builders and gamer enthusiasts? Another one of my installments of my wonderful ranting and raving and my personal opinions and beliefs when it comes to the dungeons, all things Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing in general. If you happen to like my spiel here, please do what everybody else asks you to do. Click on like, tell your buddies, more importantly, tell your friends. And I'd like to see a few more people viewing my stuff. It's, I don't know, not vain, if you will, but it's kind of what we do here. We want to share. We don't know that other people gain something or amusement or chagrin or outright anger, whatever works for you. I'm good with it. Anyway, a lot of recent topics and a couple of the game forums that I've been following have been around creating cities and city environments in general. I know that as a new GM, I was infatuated with cities. They were multi-layered, very intricate dungeons, if you will. You had the sub chambers and the basements and the study streets and then the rooftops and the wild variety of lives that went on inside those walls. And to create one well, it took a lot of work, and that was also something I was keen on doing because it allowed me to immerse myself into something of my own creation and got me away from the humdrum boredom of small town country life at the time. When you had to spend most of your days outside working and doing chores and not getting paid for it, or when you got a little older, you got yourself your introductory job where you did a lot more chores and got paid a little bit for it. And then of course school and friends and so on and so forth. Oddly enough, I still found myself with a little bit too much time on my hands, and that's where my fascination for this stuff came out of. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, when you're dealing with the city states or the cities in general, the truth is it's probably much easier to create a small village or town than it is to create a city because you can personalize pretty much everything in a village or a small town. A city, on the other hand, let's be honest, and I've seen people do it. As a matter of fact, that's what leads people, leads to production of things like the bees, where you've literally tried to give page after page after page after page of grand material for everything in a given city. And as an individual GM, that's a lot of work. Usually these are collaborative efforts. More than one person worked on them, and there's there's a good reason for that. But if you have the kind of energy or drive and time, hey, knock yourself out. Don't forget, if you make one that's good enough, elaborate enough, worthy of sharing with people, figure a way to get it out there. Put it out there for free, sell it, whatever works for you. It's worth sharing. Now, I learned early on, of course, plagiarism is a GM's best friend when it comes to creating things. And now I know there's some of you that will argue, how dare you say things like that? What could you say that we would go out and steal ideas from other people? And I'm like, who you fooling, friend? Who you lying to? You don't lie to yourself because you can't lie to me. You can't lie to the fat man, and you can't lie to everybody else around you because we're not stupid. Huh? Hmm. That's the nature of the beast. The trick is not to be outright blatant about it if you intend to sell it. But why do we read books? Why do we watch movies? To get inspiration, to get ideas. So if we see something somebody else does, that's one of the reasons we do these YouTube videos and we do these conversations on these forums, is to share our common interests and gain insight into other people's way of doing things and then finding interesting or hooks or gizmos or MacGuffins or things that we hadn't come up with ourselves, and applying them to our own stuff and our own gaming. And hey, isn't that the nature of the cornerstone, one of the key cornerstones of this stuff? And, call it what you will. Anyway, over the decades, I've acquired several full-on city system creation system or outright pre-created cities. I didn't grab my water deep box, which is an awesome city, and there's actually several reproductions of re I don't want to say that's not reprinted, but several various printed additions to it and reworks over the decades. Good system to have, and it can work for just about any city if you just alter a few names. Another one this was when I got early Forgotten Realms city system, and where we're a fan of the Forgotten Realms. The main thing here was you got a small book map that gave you some basic shops and some instructions and some suggestions, but you got a slew of maps and some really good ones, colored 3D, a lot of good stuff here. And I found the use of these things quite a bit from both not just creating the cities in general that I needed, but to flush out places like castles and cathedral or churches and what have you, depending on where my campaigns were going to go, and good stuff. And then of course my foundation for a lot of my cities, like I said, come from Judges Guild, which I do a little blurb on that in a different video if you're interested. In Judges Guild, these fellows created some pretty elaborate cities, and I do mean elaborate. They came up with lots of maps, some nice artwork. These books improved over time as they from their original early issue stuff. Main thing was they went through and created a percentage of shops and locations that you're going to find in this particular city. In this case, the city-state of the Invincible Overlord. These particular folks had a lot of really high inflated titles, and what you're going to find here is not just locations, but NPCs. I mean, once again, I've said this in a couple of my other vlogs. If you're going to go, one of the interesting or fun components to being a GM is creating these new encounters, but creating these NPCs, these floobs, these thingies, these people. I like floob, I like thingy. Just it's a perk. And then introducing them to your players and letting them interact with them or kill them or run from them or do deals with them. Then, what do? A lot of the time, we chuck the damn paperwork into a box or into the trash. Now, I believe in keeping everything because in that aspect, I build up myself a considerable library of these yahoos that I can pull at a given notice if I can find it in time and take an introduction with a different name. With the same name if it's been long enough for a different group of players. Anyhow, so we look at here. Here's the baker, the grocer, a likely name. The local grocery owned by Gandway the Tycoon. He's a fighter. He's neutral. His level's 2. He's got 9 hit points. His standard AC is 8. Of course, this was back when Thatco ruled everything, and everybody loves Thatco, right? And he's carrying a sword. He has a honey. He sells honey at 1 silver piece per gallon. Chickens at 2 copper pieces a piece. A pig for a silver piece. Hide a beef or a chunk of beef for a gold piece. Iron rations. Has 4 workers. Even gives the stats for them. Customers, if any, gives you a few stats for them. And states that Gandway has 369 gold pieces hidden in a crate. Now that's it. It doesn't give a whole elaborate description of the shop or layout or big diagram or anything like that, or it didn't go into any great descriptive information of Gandway themselves. But that's the basics of the how we initially set these things up. And in their case, that's what they did for majority of. There's about 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 is a bit more elaborate, has a bit more information, but the concept's still the same. So if I needed to, I could pull that guy as an NPC and toss him at somebody, and since it's listed as a fighter, he's got his stats, his weapon, I could actually use him in more than just one scenario. He doesn't have to be the damn grocer here, but the point is that's how Judges Guild set theirs up. In Forgotten Realms, they introduce NPCs as well, but there are fewer of them. They go into better detail on what you'll find in the shops, but in the truth, it says the same thing. They give you a lot of leeway for creating this stuff. And I don't know. I've known GMs, and I'm guilty of this myself, who have gotten so bogged down in creating this big venture that they either lose interest in it themselves or they make it so the players groan every time they go into launch into a great thing, great description or a great the main. Oh, I need to expand this, and there are reasons for that. I'm sure. Never quite understood it myself, but that's because I was been GM more than a player, and But for my consideration, if I'm going to build a city, and this is from experience now, this is something I've had to learn and learn and learn, mostly because time is valuable. Uh, these pre-generated systems are great for that. On the other hand, I can whip up a generic city pretty fast. I can get a rough map hammered out in minutes. I can go back later and do a more elaborate map if I choose. Especially now that we got the computers and stuff. Good lord, we can do so much more now. That looks so much more nicer and professional than we ever could back in the day. And so it's no big deal to do that, but still trying to flush out the whole thing, trying to put it all in. And so, you know, I asked myself, how many how many jewelers do I really need? How many jewelers are my PC is going to go talk to get to unload some of their loot? How many magic dealers of magic? How many armorers? So forth and so on. And truth, it's usually one, right? One, so maybe two, but one. And so I create the one. And where I go and I pull it out at one of these and add it to mine. And there we go. Now we got this guy. Now, if they do more dealings with this individual, I flush it out as we go. And I keep notes. So if they went to Gandway to buy their supplies and were going in there more than one time, each time they went in, the shop would become a little bit more elaborate. The descriptions of the people in there, the owner, all that stuff would go up. So would interactions. So while there might be a trip when they're to go to resupply their purchase new iron rations for the next few weeks on the road, and they run into Gandway being harassed by some local thugs or some customers complaining about something, or whatever, just to add some flavor, maybe give a little bit of an opportunity for a sidebar adventure. It's the way it works. And then you keep notes, and you keep copious notes. The more notes you keep, the better off you are. Now, I grant you, going back and fumbling through all your notes can be a pain in the butt, but it just adds to it. And over time, when you find yourself in a slow time, when let's say a weekend that everybody has to go do other stuff and you can't play, well, this is when you drag out your hastily scribbled notepad and get on your computer and fill in the blanks, build up your city. Now, uh, of course, they'll say, well, I'm going from this city to that city and this city and that. Yeah, you make a lot of different cities. I've done that too. But how much of them do we have to actually create? Give you a basic framework, a basic overview, some place names and stuff. But the interior is the same. You're going to find a Gandway in every major city and every major town. Even the small villages usually have somebody who's selling this food. Somebody owns the trade shop, right? The market, whatever. What's we're back to that. What's a little plagiarism between friends, right? Main thing is that their friends are having fun and they're not bogging down. Now, I mentioned earlier about cities and city adventures. Uh, it's my experience that you need a certain kind of player to really invoke a good city campaign, and of course, what you get out of it is what they get out of it, and vice versa. If they are bored to death with this sort of environment where they're not leaning on their sword more than they're leaning on their skills and their wits, then perhaps the city environment campaign's not for these people. Bring on the other hand, I have ran one interesting campaign, short one where everybody played barbarians and they went to town. That was the theme, right? They're going to the big city, and it was something else. It was something else. It was a miracle they all got out of there alive. And the city was put into chaos for a moment anyway, and then they citizens got back to their life after the barbarians left. Yeah, what are you going to do? There it goes back to that. What do you want out of it? A lot of people think of the rogue and the thieves guild kind of stuff when they come to the running a city campaign, but you also got intrigue and nobles and wealthy merchants and competitions among these people and the petty machinisms that your player characters can get caught up in. They're a cat's paw for somebody, and they end up finding themselves taking sides or defending the weak or this or that or the other. And it can all be done here in great, great detail. Uh, another, and this is the are we here for a day or a weekend? Or are we here for 6 months? It's a matter of is the whole campaign revolving around this particular environment? That's something hard to say. I've learned, this is where my rambling gets off track, right? Trying to come back to full circle here. I've learned that the open sandbox approach to a city is much more preferred than the controlled, hyper detailed, organized approach. There's nothing wrong with that, and you need a little bit of it. You need a lot of that, to be truthful, if you're going to be consistent. But to go into these places with too much stuff boxed in prevents your characters, your players, from actually expanding, if you will, the game campaign. I think a lot of GMs, especially new ones, tend to forget that the actual concept here is not to entertain ourselves, although that's part of the deal. If we're bored, then we're not going to do a good job. But the players are the ones who actually are the whole purpose of what we're doing. And if they need to be engaged and entertained, if they're engaged and entertained, then you'll be engaged and entertained, and everybody's having a good time. If they find themselves yawning or twiddling their thumbs or looking off in the corners of the room and utter absolute boredom, then you need to step it up, change it, or get out of the city. Some people just don't play well in the city. You're not, like I said, majority of what you're going to find there is what you consider mundane encounters or political, neo-political intrigue. I guarantee you, if you walk down a city street of the Invincible Overlord or Waterdeep, and you run across a dragon, it's not going to be a 20-foot tall, 2-ton black dragon with his wings spread from corner to corner blocking the street. Because if it is, something really bad's gone down or gone bad, and somebody's done something they shouldn't have, or whatever. But everybody in the neighborhood is going to be running one way, and all the city protectors are going to be running in this direction. It is because that's what they do. On the other hand, you're more likely to run across a colorful individual who stares at you with deadpan or with deep dark eyes, has a kind of a smug grin on his face, and goes, I got an idea. I got a deal for you, my friend. I need your sort of group of people look like I need to hire because I got a situation that needs taken care of. I know this guy, see, he's a grocer, owes me some coin. Or, I know where this MacGuffin is and I need help getting to it because, I'm just an honest merchant person and I don't have what I need, what it takes to get into the obviously you do. And so we should come over here to this tavern and have a conversation about it. And all the while, your draconic would-be employer is, laughing under his polymorph skin at your complicity of buying into every lick of what he's saying. Isn't that the way a good campaign starts out, my friends? Well, when you're building your cities, keep in mind what it is you're trying to achieve, what your goals are. Keep notes, keep lots and lots of notes, and don't be afraid to get your hands on other stuff that will give you good insight, information, things that you can borrow, if you choose that term, to fluff out your own city. And soldier on.